Here.
That's a good thing.
Now we got it.
Mr. Stack,
Here.
Mr. Warble.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum. Has everybody who's here, everybody signed in? Yeah, okay, we're good there. We're picking back up this evening just on case number, BZA case number 2021004. And this case in August was the last time that we heard on this case, and this was an appeal. This was an appeal. There was a building that was built without a permit and not in code as described in the Perry Township zoning code. Where we left it, and I'm referring to our minutes, so please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but that we tabled this meeting, and did not make any decision to wait for additional information. We did not feel we had enough information at the time. And so the things, and I just want to reiterate for everybody, what we were looking for, additional information before we made any decisions about anything. First was an appropriate professional survey that takes into account all of the known factors affecting this case. So that was the first thing we asked for. The second was a report from the Montgomery County Building Regulations Division of all factors affecting this case, including a statement on the appropriateness of the fill that was used in the construction to date. The third thing was a set, it says a set, but it's a set of building plans from the builder. The fourth was a statement from the builder on the feasibility of moving the structure. And fifth was a written statement from the owner or the owner's representative and the tenant in this case on their willingness to file all needed and appropriate additional forms requested by BZA and the county building division. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay, so that's what we asked for on this in the past. So that's your refresher. One factor that appears to me now that has changed since we first heard this case is that the applicant, who was a tenant at the time, is in fact now the owner of the property. Is that correct? Okay. So before we open it to the floor to hear any other comments from anybody, I'd like a report from the zoning administrator.
Okay, at the August 12, 2021 BZA hearing, a motion was entertained in the case that Mr. London had referred to, and to table this appeal for a period not to exceed 90 days. The 90-day was September 9th of 2021. And I was going to read what he just read, so I'm not going to read it again. What I'm going to add is also I received a copy of a second notice of violation issued by Montgomery County Building Regulations dated 12/28/2021. It says permits required for building and electric, flood damage prevention construction permit, zoning approval, and submit 2 copies of drawings. I called Mr. Barnett this afternoon to see if anything had been done on this particular violation
And Mr. Barnett's the inspector.
from Montgomery County.
Right.
And he said nothing has been done,
Nothing.
nothing. So,
No, nothing on their request?
right, on either one of the violations that he sent.
All right. All right, is there any other information that we should have before we?
That's all I have at this time.
I would
I would mention the email that you got.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. The other thing was, that I think I gave you guys copies of this. And we did get a, report, or I got an email from Mr. Gode's attorney. And, which lists the things that they did, complete, or he's giving us an update, and I'm gonna let him.
You may not have been to one before, is it will open it up to listen to anybody who would like to provide any comments or testimony on this in favor of this appeal. And this appeal was to almost, well, this appeal had to do with the permits and overriding the fact that there was no permit that was gotten. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor of this appeal? All right. Is there anyone here who'd like?
He's saying.
Yes.
Oh, you said yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So if you would state your name. Is there anyone else, as a matter of fact, who wants to make comments? I'll swear everybody in at the same time. Okay, so if you would, anyone who wants to bring any testimony or witness today, just please stand. Do you sincerely declare and affirm that the testimony that you are about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury? If so, answer, I do.
I do.
I do. Okay. All right. If you would just state your name and step on up.
My name is Adam Beiersdorfer, attorney for Gode. Just as one point of correction there for it, well, not necessarily correction, but just pointing out, I have attempted to contact Robert Martin, which is the inspector supervisor. I believe that's Paul Barnett's supervisor there, to try and resolve the issue directly with them. I do know that we have been given oral communications that from their perspective, it has to have approval from the township as far as this zoning before they can provide their approvals on their end. So it's a lockstep approach where it's first here and then them for the actual final permits and approvals. With that said, the notice itself was a little bit confusing to me in that today, the purpose of our reason to be here. So the prior
I'm
notice.
sorry, the notice.
Yep, the official notice of this meeting was set as a notice to hear the variance approval for it, whereas the prior one was a notice of violation. With that in mind, for clarification for my purposes tonight, is this an opportunity for me to argue for why a variance should be approved for this position, or is this simply a matter of a continuation of what we had before and it was a notice that was incorrect?
Well, I mean, what we were planning this evening was a continuation. We had tabled that action at that time. And with a number of stipulations for 90 days, which obviously we're well past that.
We are, and there were a number of reasons why we were past that.
All right, go right ahead.
Including our inclement weather that happened in February for it. And the obvious one, it took us, well, from when we left that meeting back in August, it took us until nearly the beginning of November before we were able to actually secure a survey that was to be completed on the property for it. I don't know how much you guys have had with trying to get surveys, but it was an inordinate task. The amount of time to get it completed was delayed, as was getting the builder's estimates and quotes for the movement of the actual construction of the unit.
So did you get that?
We did, and I shared it with Ms. Taylor. It was sent via email, and I can look back in my.
The email that I got was this from you. Okay, there's no attachments for any of the documents or anything.
This would have been up, because I was just looking at this today before I came here today.
So
There was an email that was sent that included the survey, that included the topographical map, and that included the cost for the estimate to actually relocate the building itself. I even believe I had a confirmation from Ms. Kaler in regards to that.
did it include these set of building plans?
The building plans. Oh, geez, 1 second. I don't mean to make us delay here while I stand up here to pull up an email. For the sake of saving our time, I can provide that in a little bit, or we can wait while I find the. There were two
Like I said,
emails
do you
that
have,
were
what's,
sent-
do you know the date that you sent it? Because this is the only one I received.
There were two emails sent back to back, one day and then the very day after that. Both of them had attachments. One had two attachments, one had a third attachment because it had been omitted from the very first one that was sent out. That was the Brian James Construction Company renovations for moving and relocating it. So those three were attached.
Okay, let me go back through this paperwork real quick.
Well, let me ask you this. It's okay. You go ahead and take a look if you want to, but I want to give Adam, Mr. Beardor, I want to give you the opportunity to share whatever information and make whatever statements that you want to.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna find the information for it. Coming back to where I was before. There are delays that have been from the past year for it. We've been trying in good faith to go ahead and collect everything that was necessary for this board. With that in mind, we did provide the professional survey. It was completed by Marshall Surveying out of Dayton. As far as the feasibility of movement was completed by Brian James Construction, again, sent out for it. Still pending the fill-related reports for it. During the winter time, the fill was inapplicable to reach as it was in the frozen state. Here in the spring, we're supposed to have access to it. As far as the building plans from the builder, again, this was a relatively simple building that was completed. I don't believe I actually have the building plans because I've been having difficulty actually getting in touch with the builder themselves. It's my understanding that the building may or may not still be in operation at this point. Which leads us to just simply the resolving there of the Montgomery County. It has to be resolved here first and get the okay before we get the case from Montgomery County in that point. Opportunities to speak then for it, it comes back to the piece of this that I think is important, and that's, you know, what exactly are we here for and why should we be here? And that's for the potential then for a variance for Mr. Gode's detached garage that he built. There's 5 things that this zoning board looks at in determining whether or not there are appropriateness for this particular variance. One is the uniqueness of the plot in which it's located at, which we'll talk in detail. One is, you know, the strict application of the zoning rules that it would constitute an unnecessary hardship. Again, we'll talk about that. 3 is that approval is not going to harm the public health, safety, or morals. 4 is that approval will not undermine the spirit and intent of the zoning code. And 5 is the approval is not going to damage the prime farmland or open space lands. And that's from section 405.05 of the Perry Township zoning administrator zoning text. With that in mind, we talked about it before. I'm not sure if any of you have actually been over to see Mr. Gode's property, if you've actually seen what the actual location's like. But in short, it's an anomaly. It's a grandfathered property that was built before the code was even created. The property's overall layout, its natural barriers and existing development create a unique plot compared to the other properties in this district. Typical properties on North Diamond Mill Road are rectangular in shape. They feature deep lots with narrow widths abutting the road. These lots provide the adequate space necessary for accessory buildings behind the residence, thanks to their inherent depth that's there. Driving here today, I was reminded of that as every single house I passed, almost ubiquitously, was a perfect little rectangle with a house in front. The house is the focal point of what you saw when you're driving past, and the garages and the detached structures behind them. Again, adequate space for them to be there. The property, meanwhile, in this question, it takes a rectangular shape, but inverts it 90 degrees. It creates a relatively wide parcel. It's over 300 feet wide, but it's shallow. It's only 138 feet deep. And unlike the other parcels in this district that have that ample space behind the residence, this one also has additional issues in that it has the barriers behind the property itself, the creek that runs behind it, the natural trees and the topography that causes the ground to run away from where the back of the buildings are. So these natural barriers only compound the issue with the property. And of course, as we talked about before, there's also flooding that occurs because it does have a floodplain with that creek. So due to the waterway, the flooding in the back of the property has been left mostly natural, with numerous mature native trees, which provide erosion protection from that waterway and privacy screening from the neighbors. This property, as I said, was one of the earliest developed in the area. Its neighbors, located at 104 North Diamond, at 60 North Diamond, and at 70 North Diamond, we're talking about being built in 1963, 1948, and 1962. This property was built in 1900. Again, in and of itself, if it had been built today, it would have been out of compliance with the code, as it was offset from the road was too shallow, too short. In addition to the residents, this property had an in-ground concrete pool. It was a Olympic-sized diving swimming pool. It was installed by with extensive concrete pad by the prior owner, which, as we discussed in August, happened to be a BZA board member when he built it adjacent to his residence. The pool was neglected. It sat derelict for many years before current owners took residence. The pool was a hazard because it wasn't in use. There was no water in it. It was broken down. It was filled with all manners of mosquitoes, with brackish water, or not brackish water, but dirty water. It was a hazard to anybody, whether it was a person walking in the property or a car that might have swerved and gone into it. Again, this was an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It was deep for diving. It wasn't just your 3-foot, 4-foot pool. This is the very reason why the client's insurance company, when he got the house, required him to either fix the pool, fix the hazard, or fill it in, because it was too dangerous for him to be insurable with that. So in essence, this property, in terms of its layout, its available space for development, the existing building code, it renders the property entirely unique for the purposes of this variance. Again, this was the very reason why this variances are even allowed, because they know not all parcels are the same. I remember in August, we had a conversation about the precedents that we were concerned about with approving something like this. That we didn't want to have other people see this as an approval and then say, well, this is my authority, this is my ability to go out and go ahead and get this approval as well. Well, that's not the case. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it is a unique structure. It is a unique building. It is a unique space. The parcel itself lends itself to this requirement. Immediately behind the garage itself is a giant drop off of more than 6 to 12 feet as it slopes down towards the river itself. This is an area, again, that doesn't have the ability to push itself back. Any applicant that ever wanted to have a variance approval of such site would have to also show that their property was unique. So driving in here again today, that average flat country parcel that's a rectangle with a depth that's very deep and a width that's very narrow would have no problem being able to have the building behind themselves. They wouldn't need the variance. And if they did, they would have a very difficult hill to climb to show that they are in fact unique and that their property somehow would prevent them from being able to build it in front of the house. The second piece there against the strict application. Again, the homeowner of the property would be subjected to an unnecessary hardship if strict application of these zoning rules were applied. From the onset, he invested $8,500 into actually constructing the garage and thousands more building an automotive lift inside. Should the variance not be approved, relocating the garage behind the house would require significant foundational preparations, including the removal of mature trees, pouring of concrete piers and thicker concrete slabs required for the automotive lift. Again, in the email, it has the estimate from James Construction and Renovation, which is a reputable builder here in Dayton, an expert with old homes and property renovations. It would have cost, in his estimate, $51,000 due to the extensive demolition of the actual concrete pads and structure, because again, it was an Olympic diving pool. We're not talking about some tiny little pool that's just dropped in there. This person spent significant amounts of money, time, and energy to build this big pool. And again, it has to be removed if it's going to be moved back. After that, you have to fill in the area behind where that pool was as it slopes away. All of that is a lot of time, money, and energy. Again, in Brian James of James Construction's estimate that's reflected there for you. So from a one sense, there'd be an extreme financial hardship of my client if it was denied for the variance. But there's also a practical and environmental hardship here as well. The loss of these mature trees would not result in it would result in the loss of privacy, but there would also be a loss of root systems from all these trees that again act as an erosion control device there against the run itself. By forcing him to tear it down, to move it back, you're cutting into mature trees, both in terms of their foliage cover, but more importantly, in terms of their roots that are down there that are holding that bank. you would have to do alternative erosion control measures, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a natural river run area there. You would have all sorts of things that would be put in there that are not natural, that may not be as effective, and certainly aren't going to be as aesthetically pleasing. Approval is not going to harm the public health, safety, or the morals of doing this. So granting the variance isn't going to adversely affect this. The garage replaced an existing health hazard that was an abandoned in-ground concrete pool. It festered with stagnant water and was rife with mosquitoes and other hazardous pests. My client's actions served to protect nearby residents from well-documented transmissions of communicable diseases by mosquitoes, West Nile virus, for example, and these pests, while also removing a hazard to the drivers if they did swerve into that property, because again, they would fall more than 6 to 8 feet, depending on the part of where they were driving into, if they'd swerved into that. I think of a deer as being a reason why you might swerve forward. Before these drivers would have careened into the depths of the pool had he not filled this in and built something in its place. Furthermore, my client is an avid hobby of working and restoring on vehicles of all kinds. He used to do this right in the gravel adjacent to the side of the road. That in and of itself was a recipe for disaster. And just this sort of distracted driving where one moment of taking your eyes off the road can lead to tragedy. He was in a dangerous spot there for himself working in the gravel next to the road, but he was in a dangerous spot for all the drivers that were going by who might have lacked their attention and careened into him. By doing this garage, it put him into a nice, safer spot where he can actually be out of the way from the public, out of the way from everybody else, and safely put away. Granting this variance ensures that he can safely work on these cars from the safety and security of his garage. It ensures that his valuable tools are protected. They're not right to be stolen. The vehicles are safely stowed away, less likely to make a mess. And it's hard to fathom how my client removing an existing hazard and putting a safe and secure workspace would be anything but promoting the public health, safety, and morals of the community and its residents. The approval is not going to undermine the spirit and intent of the zoning code. Again, as I mentioned before driving in here, we know that the house should be the focal point. We don't want the idea of someone building a garage up front and the house being behind it. We don't want it to obscure. One of the primary resolution pieces there for section 102 of the Perry Township Code explicitly states the resolution is enacted for the purpose of the promotion of public health, safety, and morals. Well, we just talked about how this is a promotion of the public safety, health, and morals, both in terms of insects and pests that might spread diseases, in terms of an actual physical hazard, both with the pool that used to be there and in terms of him when he was next to the roads if he couldn't have had it there. As described above, this is a variance provides a place for the property owner to safely work on his cars. It protects the owner from increased likelihoods of theft from valuable tools. And of course, those rampant pieces there that we don't want to have to this undermining the spirit of what's happening here. It should be noted that being able to work inside an enclosed building would also reduce the noise and light pollution to the nearby residents in and around him. They're going to otherwise be subjected to the sounds of him with impact wrenches, with lights out there at night and all times of the day. But being in a building, he can actually be secluded. He can protect them. It'll be trapped within inside. And again, this is a grandfathered house and property. Again, I've said this multiple times. This property predates the Perry zoning code. It's essentially the same distance to the road as the garage. To the naked eye, it is. Driving past tonight, it looks exactly as if it is the same distance from the road. I know it's not. I know there's a matter of inches where it's actually in front of it. Driving here, I saw a number of other buildings and garages that looked awfully close to my exacting eye. So it's still fitting in with the spirit of what I see driving in here. This variance will not act as precedent again for the others to build there in front of their homes. Again, this property, it's unique. It's an anomaly. And anyone else that's going to have to try and get that is going to have to prove that they too are an anomaly, which we know is going to be a difficult feat based on what we've heard in the past. Finally, the variance desired is not going to compromise the preservation of prime agriculture and open spaces. Again, this property itself isn't in an agricultural area. It's not zoned agricultural. Its layout and proximity to the floodplain would not be considered prime agriculture. The garage was built on top of an existing in-ground pool. By denying the variance, you're going to force the property to raise numerous native trees and wetlands and plants on it. You're going to have them destroy sections there next to that run of the waterway. Denying the variance actually is going to result in significant changes to the natural waterway in the lands of the western side of the property. They don't run in the spirit and intent of the code, but for arbitrary reasons if it's going to be enforced, in that it is a matter of inches ahead of where the property is, or that it's a matter of feet from where it should be if it's per the code. But by granting the variance, you're going to ensure that the protection of these open space lands and the prime agriculture won't be affected by this at all. It'll have zero impact on those. So in summation, The facts support the conclusion the property is unique. A hardship would most undoubtedly occur if the code were to be strictly enforced. The public health, safety, and morals should be protected. The spirit and intent of the zoning code will not be undermined, and the approval of the variance will not result in the loss of prime agricultural and open space lands. Again, I've rattled off all these things. I'll check and see where these emails went that had the actual additions and the actual attachments for
I
them.
did find them, sir, and I did give them over to them.
Thank you. With that in mind, again, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to get a variance approved in this particular matter, rendering all these facts pieces. At this point in time, it's simply the logistical steps of getting it all done, of being able to get things completed here so that we can have everything finished the way it should be. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Do we have any questions? We may have a number, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she did just give us this survey. One of the things I was trying to see, and of course, by sending them, first of all, this is not what we accept. Okay, we want that drawing. We want that paper from the surveyor. Then if we make copies for each other, the rest of us, then we'll go from that. We're looking at something here that's so minute that you cannot, it's not to scale. It's not to what your surveyor, what you just paid a lot of money for. So that makes it difficult for us. Like, he doesn't have, to what I can see, that distance between the garage and the Diamond Mill Road. I did finally see where he did note this well and septic areas, which would be something we would also want on a drawing that we get. But typically, we want to see what you paid a lot of money for, which is those drawings on from the engineer that you had do this. So that would be something that I think I would want to see. And like I say, I would want that measurement. I tried to look, I don't know if you can, to see if you can.
By the way, those are on PDFs. They're able to be zoomed into 200% or more on a computer. I guess
Okay.
we're not on a computer now. All right,
Right.
we'll go so far, but
Yeah, but that's what, because right now, tonight, this is the first we've seen of any of this.
Sure.
So that makes it difficult for us to make any kind of decision by not having all of the information in front of us to be able to look at it like we normally do.
Looks like December 13th.
Okay.
This got lost in the file.
Any other questions?
No, not right at the moment.
Um, Questions? This man.
Yeah. Stated that Mr. Goode is using this to restore vehicles.
He uses it to fix and repair, restore is another way to describe that, his own personal vehicle. It's not a business,
Okay,
but it's a hobby.
and he paints vehicles there.
Not that I'm aware of for painting. It's, in my understanding, it's mechanical that he's doing there, replacing parts.
That's another thing, having a approved paint booth for painting.
And when I've been in that property, there is no paint booth, there's no paint applicators of any type. There's a lift that you drive up into that lifts the vehicle up.
Just mechanical restoration.
Correct.
And then I got another quandary, since the initial violations were issued. I see that he has also wired the structure without a permit. Is there a reason why he didn't get a permit, knowing he needs a permit, and went ahead and wired it?
I do not know at this time.
If I could, I think if nothing else, I just want to clarify one thing.
Go ahead.
I think the reason we're here is because action's been taken where permits were required or variances were required. We're way past the 90 days that we gave,
Sure.
well past that. And we're sitting in this, we're in this position, not because we made a mistake. I just really want to make that clear, that the dilemma that we're in, because one thing after another was not done properly. Can you tell us why there was no application for a variance prior to building, or there was no request for a building permit when, before building? There was no request for a permit for the electric before install, or any of these things? I mean, there's a list.
Good questions. One,
And the fill also. I mean, there are regulations around the fill. We don't know whether or not, I still don't know. I'm still not clear. Maybe it's here and I haven't seen it, but I'm still not clear whether or not that fill was appropriate, but based upon the guidelines that are out there for everybody's safety.
good questions. Again, ones that if I were in your seat, I'd be asking the same questions too. The short answer is that Mr. Goad was not aware that he needed to apply for certain permits at the time when he was taking his actions. For some of these aspects, he thought so long as he was building it and it was in sound building, that it would have been satisfactory. Having said that, that was before retaining an attorney. That was before looking into these things. He trusted and then believed that the builder was going to be undertaking actions on his behalf to do what was ever necessary to put it up. So there's a two-part here for it. There was a reliance on the builder to ensure that he was taking the proper steps. And perhaps there was some oversight on his part as to make sure that they be doing at that time.
And I'd like to go back to when you said that Montgomery County is wanting us to make a decision on a variance before they move on anything. So I guess that's where I stand with it is like, we could be, I mean, we're trying to rewind this and pretend nothing has happened when a whole lot has happened. And so that's where, you know, I'm like in the chicken egg sort of thing where even if we erase the board and then we say, oh, if we started out with this being an application for a variance and everything that you went through is correct. I mean, and we do treat each case on an individual basis. So it wouldn't matter if this was approved and next month somebody came in and wanted to do the same thing. It would have to be based on that particular parcel and that particular set of circumstances. I guess where I'm at with this is like, okay, well, even if we erased all this and said, well, based on if there wasn't anything there and we would approve this because of the circumstances surrounding that parcel, then Montgomery County could come in on these violations and say, I don't care what they said. You're tearing it down. I want to know what you filled in there, or we're going to core drill it. We're going to find out what you know, I mean, then it could be a whole nother hornet's nest for you. And ultimately, then I'm assuming they're the ones that would decide the structure's moving or the structure's coming down or something like that is what you're telling us is in your communication with them or something?
Well, what I'm telling you is that when communications are made, both on my part and in particular by my client's part, to talk to the county about resolving this, their immediate response was, you need to resolve it with Perry Township first.
Okay.
So that's the fear.
Your understanding is they're saying resolve a variance before we deal with permits?
Correct. And that's the conundrum that I'm in with as well is I'm afraid that one party is going to say, you need to resolve it with them.
Right.
And the other side is saying, no,
Right.
no, you need to resolve it with them first.
That's why I say it's sort of like chicken egg here. And
Exactly.
what is your feeling in your conversation with Montgomery County, what they're saying?
Well, when I first talked to Montgomery County, I talked to Robert Martin and he referred this case to Paul Barnett, who is the inspector.
Okay.
So that's who I've been communicating with. When I called him today and I asked him about the violations, you know, had anything been done? He told me he said absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So,
And
I
then,
mean, I will call Robert Martin tomorrow.
okay, and so that, and then what you're being told is that you know, Montgomery County's telling you, we're not going to move until Perry Township gives you your variance to be at least in this spot.
Correct. And then for one point of clarification, I haven't actually talking to Rob Barnett. I have made communications with Martin, not Rob.
Yeah.
Paul Barnett, right?
Paul Barnett.
Okay, I have one more thing.
No, please.
And then I'll
go
shut
ahead.
up. I swear I
You're-
will.
You're fine.
Okay, so then the other thing that's happened since August is this property has transferred ownership. My feeling on this, and this is only my feeling, okay? This needs to have a new application because we have a new owner. And I think to make this clean, and I don't know what the rest of the board feels on this, I want to see Mr. Gode's name as owner on this application. I no longer want to see the Edwards Fosnot connection to this, because I think what we've been working on is an application that was applied for a year ago. And now we have property ownership change in November. And just for my, and this is truly, this is just only me and just liking, and I don't know, we may be told, oh, no, it's okay, you can do that. I just think it would be cleaner if we had a proper application now with the new owner.
No, I,
I don't know what the rest of the board comment
No,
on that.
that's fine. Thank you. Just looking at the variance alone. And I've only been here about 20 years.
And me too.
Yeah, I mean, so, and I haven't quite seen anything quite like this. But in that limited amount of time, if someone's asking, I'm just sharing some information here for everybody. When someone asks for a variance, regardless of what it is, and we've had many a variance come in and we've granted some and not granted others on the location of a barn in front of a house and 5 feet, 10 feet and all the other stuff. But the questions are still there. The questions get answered before we do grant or deny. And some of those questions, I don't, and I may not be hearing it. Maybe it's here. But we would ask questions about where the septic is, where the fields are. We would ask questions about, and we have, about driveways and all kinds of things. And then when there's a unique case like this, where we're talking about building on top of a unique structure like this, I can assure you, we're going to be asking questions about what's permitted and what's not permitted in terms of the fill for something like that and treating that unique. And I'll grant you, that's a unique situation. That's a unique structure. We're going to be asking those questions. So I don't think some of the questions that you're hearing from us now and that you heard from us, and this was in August. And maybe we haven't, and I haven't seen it. Is there in fact a report from Montgomery County Building Regulations Division that anybody's got that addresses the factors, including a statement of the appropriateness of the fill and that was used? I mean, that's basic. I did see the map here, so I can see that there is a designation in terms of where the septics, I mean, but I guess I'm just trying to say what we're trying to do here and what we've done in the past. We usually, we get requests usually for a variance prior to all this happening. So that's the first thing. But in addition, we have these same questions. So there's nothing unusual here in terms of our questions. I want to make that clear to everybody. Because I've been asking questions about where septics are located in regards to a building and a building on top of it, a field, or we've all been doing this for many years. That's just a piece of information. Now, I would like to go back to ask this question. Does anybody have any kind of information with regards to the fill?
I don't have any.
Do you have any?
again, at this time, we do not have the field information. That's something that can be collected and will be collected.
Okay. All right. Mr. Warfel, do you have any questions?
I don't see that we're any farther along than we were last time, really. We don't have an accurate survey of the property that we can, it's legible.
Right.
We need some sort of even if they have to do a core sample, if an engineering firm come out and find out what kind of fill they have.
And whether or not that fill meets
Yeah.
the safety guidelines.
Action and they'll, has to meet a certain compaction for the foundation. It would be nice if we knew if the whole building is over top of the old swimming pool or just the corner, that would help. Maybe that'll be on the survey map.
It would be on the survey map. It should show that it's actually affixed to parts of the existing concrete pad. And then the pool itself essentially runs through part of the middle of where the actual building is. So for example, it's my understanding that all four corners of this building are physically attached to the concrete, not the fill. The fill serves as the floor basically of this building, which the last time I was there is not, there's no concrete there, it's gravel in the entry in that piece there.
This, a set of building plans from the builder, this is a prefabricated building, correct? So there should be like just a standard set of plans. that This brand of building shouldn't they be able to send us or send you?
Well, again, it's my understanding that the builder is no longer,
Well,
builder, so
forget the builder. What about the building? Like a Butler building is a brand of building.
Right.
They have standard
Right.
plans that they give everybody for that type of building. Can't you get that type of plan for us?
gentlemen, do we know the name? I have it on my phone.
That would be helpful.
And obviously, I wouldn't expect anyone to try to review it right now on their phones or devices, but to provide that detail.
I mean, I almost think this would be a great thing to be able to get, I don't care if it has to be a Zoom meeting or what. It just seems like not only is it chicken egg, but it's also like, I don't know, like three squirrels running around, because it would be great if you could get, if Robert Martin, which knowing from experience with him, it's best to go to Dayton and stand there and wait to see him. That is the best thing to do.
If you're serious about
Yes.
in touch with him.
But the other thing I was thinking is, even if it was a Zoom meeting, that you could get Karen and him and yourself, and so that everybody could be talking about this at the same time, because it seems that now this is the second meeting on this I've been involved in, that it's always, well, what did he say? And what do they want to do? Well, I don't want to move until you move. And I just think of all of those parties. And like I say, I've dealt with Robert before myself, so I know how hard he is to nail down, but you can. And it just seems like if he's sitting there saying, well, if you guys do this, then I'm going to do this, or this is what our requirements are going to be, how we're going to remedy this. So it would make, I think, the start to come together a little bit easier than what it has now for a year. That's my thought.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You felt 90 days was sufficient and to be able to gather the information. You indicated at the time you thought it probably was. So we passed 90 days more than twice since then. My next question is if there's additional information, how much longer is it expected? Do you expect this board, would you be requesting this board to be patient to get information to approve something that should have been approved or requested prior to action? How much longer?
No, it's a good question. And there were two big things, I think, that really skewed out the time between now and when we initially were there. One, again, has been this constant delay in surveying services, building services, to actually have the ability to schedule and be there in timelines when you expect them to. I miscalculated how long it would take to get a surveyor out there. I had no idea that the fastest surveyor that could have possibly been there was going to be 4 weeks out. And then it was going to be an amount that was extremely premium to what it really should have been. So there were delays in terms of coordination. Secondly, and I know that we even mentioned this last time and we didn't like the idea of it, but that COVID variant threw everything for a spin there for us, both in terms of when we were going to be here. And again, we had 30 more days that passed from one winter storm. Had it been February 4th, we could have been here, 27 days sooner or 27 days sooner than where we are now. So we had issues that occurred there that delayed things. The good news is that we have a surveyor that's done the property, that's been there, that's inspected it, that can provide the proper drawing for it. So I don't have to worry about waiting to try and find a surveyor to do the job they're supposed to do. I just need to have it more detailed. So I don't expect there to be extreme delays for that. In terms of other aspects of what we need, finding out a core sample is going to take time to find the individual who's going to be able to do it, to analyze it, and then tell us whether or not it's in compliance. I'm not going to make the same mistake I did last time of thinking it will be done in 2 weeks, because that's just simply not the case. I have no idea if it will or it won't, but it's probably safe to assume it's going to take longer than I expected for the core. I do and very much like the idea and suggestion of getting on a joint with Montgomery County. I do think that will resolve a lot of this chicken and egg related aspect. So that delay of when I talk to somebody should be reduced immediately. I would not want to ask for too little time, because I don't want us to be in this exact same situation now where we are, where we have a member saying that we're basically in the exact same spot that we were in August. Same token, I don't want to abuse you either for how long that is going to be to get this done, because I don't think it benefits anyone to drag it out longer than necessary. It's entirely reasonable, I think, to ask for 60 days to get the core related aspects taken care of, to hash out everything necessary between Perry and Montgomery County. It would not necessarily be the worst idea if for comfort we had 90 days with the intention that if we can get everything sooner, then we schedule it sooner to resolve it.
That's helpful. Do you have any additional questions?
I don't.
Do you have any additional questions, Dave?
Is there any way to know where the old pool was exactly? I mean, you may be sitting on top of the old foundation of the pool, which would be ideal.
No, I mean, you can absolutely see where the old pool was. We are basically on, again, to my understanding, the actual structure of this building is affixed to the pool structure, not where the fill is for where the pool is.
Okay, is there any way to verify that?
Yeah, I mean, we could have somebody go out and take pictures of where the affixing points are to the actual concrete. We could take pictures of where you can see where the pool fill is. So from the back side of the building, you actually can see where the concrete continues around, and then you can see the fill from the back side. So you can see exactly where the outline of the pool is from the backside. Again, it spans partway through the building, but not all the way. So yeah, we can take pictures and show exactly where it is. We can, I don't know if the surveyor will be able to draw that into such detail, but we can absolutely take pictures. And of course, we also open up the idea that if it ever was the case, we can go there in person. We can show you exactly where things are, where they aren't, or reasonable request there to provide that information.
Okay.
That's the only question I have.
And they did, she just ran us a little bit bigger on this survey. And I would like to see these measurements from the garage, like you've got the garage to the road.
Yes.
This, and, I'm assuming this is the edge of the road. So
Mhm.
here to there. And then obviously, like you say, you're
The front house.
probably not seeing that, but I would still like to see those measurements, because that's a part of truly what our approval is. So that's what's, I mean, we can see where the well, see where the septic is, these building footprints, but truly what you're asking us to make a variance on is not really well noted on this drawing, and it should
Right,
be.
it's not.
Because I'm not familiar with what he's got going there with them X's.
Yeah. There are so many factors, and this is for everybody. There are just so many factors that we'll take into account whenever we're going to look at these. And I'm going to be honest with you, again, I've only been here 20 years, but the number of people that we've had come in here and ask for a variance over the years and all of the other kinds of conditional uses that we've done. I will say that at the time I've been here, this board's gone out of their way to do everything they possibly can to consider the individual situations and has rarely denied anybody when they've gone through and taken care of what they needed to take care of. And we've had the answers to the question so that we could make a reasonable. That's really part of the conundrum here, is that we've had action. One of the things I'd like to ask is it possible that no more action of any kind could be taken until we get this settled?
In terms of no more action,
Like,
could you define?
yeah, anything that's gonna, that would need it. Could somebody please check and see if any other action, whether any other building or anything else that has to be done that needs a permit, could somebody check first?
I think what he's getting at is the building was built without a permit, but then it didn't have electric. And then, now we have electric, so we didn't get a permit for
Yeah, so
that.
what's next? Are we gonna add water? We're gonna, without permits and then come back and ask for a permit and put us in even a more difficult position? Because the kinds of questions that we're asking, seriously, are the questions that we ask for all. Where is this located? Where is that located? If something has to be a fill, what's the kind of fill that you're planning on using? Is that the kind of fill that will be approved? Is it a danger to your neighbors? That's our job, is to ask those questions. But it's more difficult for us to ask those questions when the action's already been taken.
Well, and a lot of times our variances are not so much that we're the ones that have to monitor that, because
Right.
that's Montgomery
That's
County.
right.
But we'll put in our variance that it is approved with the condition
Right.
that Montgomery County is there to watch that fill. Because a lot of times that's what it'll be. They want to see what's going in that fill. And if they don't, that's where the core sample is going to come in.
Right.
They're
And
going to be like,
it's-
what do you got down there?
that the plan is to meet code.
Yeah,
That there's
so
a plan
we
ahead of
don't,
time, not to question and guess and.
right,
everything
we
else.
don't, but we'll put that condition on the
Absolutely.
variance approval is that, based on the condition of you getting involved with Montgomery County to make sure that what they want to see happen is done. And of course, then, once you're involved with them, then, of course, you're going to pull your permit for electric, and of course, you're going to do foundation inspection and this, and, then it just goes through that process. And unfortunately, I know you're not involved with the builder that put this up, but, some of that falls back on them. I mean, if you've got a quality builder, they're going to be going, look, I'm not doing this without a permit, or I know what they know. So, I mean, there is a part of that falls on the quality of builder that you have as well.
Yeah.
So, so we're not the police over the fill in the sense of standing there watching you do it, but we will put a condition in there that meets Montgomery County guidelines, which right now we don't know that it did.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it did, but,
Well,
we don't know that.
That's fair. And thanks for the clarification too on the comments there. I will assure you that my client will not take actions that would have required a permit of any type prior to taking it. My concern was that he would still able to use that building in the meantime while it's still being completed, meaning inside working on his vehicles aspect.
Yeah, nobody's going to begrudge anybody that. And we're all well aware of the dynamics that the pandemics have put. And so we've clearly been more lenient, as we should be, frankly. Does anyone here on the board have any more questions, Mr. Green?
No.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to present to us this evening in favor of this appeal?
Not at this time. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be up here and to speak and your answers, and I look forward to helping get this resolved.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak in favor of this appeal?
I don't know how much this works, but I just wanted to say it was good to see an improvement to the neighborhood. If that means anything.
If you would, sir,
He's trying.
if you'd state your name for the record.
Willie Sutton.
Thank you, Willie.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. Is there anybody else here who'd like to speak in favor? If not, is there anybody here who would like to speak against this granting of this appeal? There's appears to be nobody. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to close the open portion of the meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
A move by Mr. Warble. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Steck, without opposition, so moved. All right. Gentlemen and the fair lady. Thoughts on what would you like to see? I was very serious when I said we've gone out of our way time and again for property owners to try and do what we possibly can, sometimes with condition, to make every consideration. It's been a long time since we've been put well behind an 8 ball like this with so many questions outstanding.
Been sitting here having thoughts, had a permit been applied for on the front end property. I think there would have been a huge list given to the person applying for it. Not out to get anybody, but to help them.
Sure.
I mean, for instance, a floodplain.
Right.
There's a floodplain, and I think the powers that be would say, well, that would be a bad place to build a building. I understand not wanting to take down trees and things like that. Well, the homeowner would then have choices. Do I want this building bad enough to take it down or not? And I think it would help anybody that's applying for a permit to do things better with the knowledge they have about certain things. But it seems like in this situation, it kind of ballooned. One thing and then another thing and another thing. And then it's like, okay, now what do we do? And, we asked for certain things quite a few months ago. And I don't know, where's it end? I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Sure. Brad, any thoughts?
No, I mean, our hands are kind of tied till we get a legible survey, so we can, with some measurements and some of the requests, I think that conversation that we're going to have with the county will be good because, I'm sure they have some concerns too, with the foundation and the fill. If we can get, to me, it would be helpful for me to be able to see how this building is built. Is it just floating on a slab? Does it have piers down in? Block foundation? Is it a pole barn? We don't know any of that right now, so that would be helpful, which is what we've asked for, some sort of a building plan. And that building plan should show a foot or a foundation that this building's setting on. Sometimes that whole foundation thing is done by another contractor, and then the person or the contractor actually putting up the metal building comes in after the fact. The discussion about the county and the fill, if we can see the outline of the old pool, it sounds like some of it's on the old foundation of the pool and some of it isn't, so that that may require a trip of us if it's visible. So we actually see, but that still doesn't answer the question of what kind of fill and compaction they have. I'm hoping the county will give us some guidance on that, and maybe, that would be, if we go forward with the variance, that would be, a requirement that some sort of verification is given on that.
Connecting the building with the breezeway was brought up at some point in time, and I don't have an answer to that. Does that change anything in terms of the actual building, in terms of where it's located?
Well, this one it does, because he's, those few little, if you're getting down to the measurement, if he would have held the line back on the garage, to be in line with the front of the house and then connected over that. I'm assuming it's a concrete pad. It says CONC on there, with a breezeway, then he's now whatever it is, whether it's inches or a foot or whatever, he's in front of the front line of the house technically.
Right.
So that puts it out of that breezeway option.
Sherry, here's a black and white. I don't know if that would be helpful.
No, I have that.
You have it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it. And they've even said that it is a little bit kind of there, but.
Let me ask a question, just since we're here. Let me hit with a hypothetical. Do me a favor and assume for a moment that we're not after the fact, that you're here before the fact. And we've got an application for a variance, and that variance has to do with what's happened here, but that variance has to do. What are the questions? What are the things on your mind? What are those list of the things? And tell me if I'm wrong. I know that a question would be about the fill, because we've dealt with this over the years, you know, if there's something has to be filled, is it appropriate? So that would be a question on the list. Am I right? The survey, having a survey, you've got actually a real survey. I'm sorry, I don't mean to demean the email or anything like that, but we have to be able to see and have something that's. I'm old fashioned. I like that one with the stamp in it and the, you know, raised seal. I want to know that came from the surveyor, and there's not been anything that's been adjusted, that they're testifying to that when they put that seal on that puppy. So we would be asking for a survey. We'd be asking for a plan. We'd be asking for a set of plans on that. We'd also be asking always about you know, the field and the septic, if that's in fact the situation, which it would be here. We'd be asking about that. We would be asking if there was any intention on connecting at any point to the primary building, because I've heard that come up before. Hey, that's so close. You plan on putting a breeze? Are you connecting it? What's the plan there? We would be asking about those. We would be asking about who the builder is.
Well, that would be in the packet.
Yeah, I mean, these are some of the questions. What else might we be asking if we weren't looking at this after the fact?
Well, we would actually have a front of the building typically, height and width and depth, all that stuff. That'd be part of the survey, exactly where this building was going to sit.
Okay.
And if the building doesn't meet the requirements, the feasibility of moving it, so it did. Is there room on the property to move it, to comply, like that? You want to put the building here, but we just went through.
Yeah, we did. We actually did. Just a few months ago, somebody wanted it here. Turned out because of a variety of circumstances, it said, yeah, you know, we're going to give you one, but you got to get it over here 2 feet or whatever the hell it was.
And it wasn't exact, but it was an attempt.
Yeah.
And a compromise, and
Yeah.
it worked.
It did work.
Yeah.
You're right.
But that's why we ask, I think, about what type of structure it is, because certain buildings could be moved pretty easy. They aren't really in the ground, they're on the ground and they're anchored.
Yeah.
You know, you just unanchor them and drag them and re-anchor them. It's not a big deal.
What else, Sherry? Anything else you might think of that we might have been?
No, I think if this was coming to us, like you say, as a fresh
Yeah.
thing, the only thing I see is, like Brad said, if, you know, we typically get, like, we're planning to put a Morton building up, and Morton has their package, and here's all this, the specs are. But we take that, and we know that that's within our parameters as far as height and structure and all that.
Yeah.
But we're truly not the Montgomery County part of this.
That's
So
right.
again, I think looking at this particular, if this was the drawing that came in and we were reviewing this, I'd say, and we went out, because that's another thing we do,
Right.
is we physically go out, which made a difference on a case not that long ago.
Yeah.
And we walk the perimeter and we see, oh, well, this is why we want to go here. This is why they don't want to go there. Whatever. On this particular one, let's say we went out there and this did seem to be the case that this is the best location,
Mhm.
the proximity to the home. I would have said, let's pull that front line back
Mm.
and make sure that we're in
That's not an
compliance
issue.
there.
Get rid of the
That's-
issue.
Get rid of that, because it's easy enough
Yeah.
to pull it. And then, if there wasn't any other factors as far as, well, we don't want to go back here because there's mature trees, or we're getting into soggy ground because of a floodplain or whatever, and this made the best sense, then I could have seen, making an approval based on the fact that and noting that there is a pool that is the plan to fill, and that as long as this meets Montgomery County guidelines for a fill, nothing we have to police. We don't care if it's filled with circus peanuts.
Right. So we would have had a whole series of.
We would have said
contingencies,
approved
Is what
for
we
the
would have done.
location based on the plan submitted.
You've got a variance based upon the following contingencies. You give us a letter from Montgomery County that says, yes, this is what we're approving for fill. Yes, we agree to this. Yes, in spite of the floodplain, this is, okay. We would have had those.
Well, and the way this would proceed from here is then they would receive a letter
Exactly.
with our well wishes. Then it's Montgomery County.
Right.
And then they're gonna be like, okay, now the next thing you need to do is your foundation inspection. They're gonna make an inspection. They're gonna be out there as this progresses, so you wouldn't have ever got this far. They would have been out there to see, and if you would, divulge to them, hey, I'm doing a pool fill for the foundation. They're gonna give you guidance on that.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna say, we want to be there, or we want to, this is what the deal is with them.
They could say, your footer's gonna have to be twice as big as it needs to be because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't know what's under here,
Yeah, because
There's
I
any number of
personally
things.
just went through a build for a brand new garage that was tornado, took it. And I was also in a situation where it was a deal where the old that got sucked away was not compliant. I had to bring it into compliance. So I had to bring it over off of the property line. And I do know, they're out there inspecting the footer, they're inspecting the forms, the footers, and after the fact. So you would have never gotten this far had that been done according to Hoyle, so to
Right.
speak.
Okay.
Michael,
But
Yes.
I had a copy of the minutes from August 12th,
Right.
and you had asked a question, do you remember the name of the builder? And Mr. Gold answered Dayton All Seal. It's what?
Well,
I ultimately think our decision is just whether or not we feel that based on the location, that would be approved as a variance. The other factor we haven't talked about is the ingress egress, if there is any issue there. And I think that's a little bit of what he's got drawn here on this.
you and I can't tell. Well, it's just me, but I can't tell from the small.
But anyway, that's, that's how I would have seen this progressing had it been a new
Okay.
application.
Yeah, because I just couldn't see. All right.
Oh, Michael.
Can I add one correction out of what?
We have to open.
It's,
Wait, I'm
Wait a
sorry.
minute.
No, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Is there a motion to reopen the public portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
All right, so ordered without objection. Yes?
the manufacturer is all steel carports. I think you mentioned all steel days or all steel. Barns of steel?
Who?
Barns of steel.
Ah, that's different. Okay, Barnes a field?
Barns
Steel.
of steel.
Okay, what he said. Write it down.
But that was all. I just wanted to correct that.
No, that's perfectly all right. Anything else?
I'll add it. I'm done.
Did somebody want to make a statement?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. Who filled the pool? Who filled it?
Oh, I couldn't answer that for you. That is one of the questions that we've had, which is why we asked for a report on
Does
that.
his attorney know? I mean, did the people who built this carport?
We're waiting for that information.
You know,
Yeah. Okay, it is,
you filled it?
it is one of the pieces of information we've been waiting for.
I didn't know if the builder took care of all that.
We didn't either.
or how that-
One of the pieces of information we're trying to figure out. Okay. Does anyone have any sense before I make a suggestion here? Of anything else that you want to add? I need to, a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
so ordered without objection. Okay. Karen? If we were to table the decision on this again for a period of time with that information the same information that we asked for before,
Mhm.
and maybe a couple of additional pieces of information, and you were able to have or can organize, and I'm happy if you're the one that does it, that organizes a meeting, in person, Zoom, masked, unmasked, toggles, whatever,
Mhm.
with the county to try and address some of these issues. Do you think you have enough clarity from us about the questions that we've got, or you could get from the minutes?
Yes. What I will do is I'm going to call Robert Martin tomorrow,
Okay,
and I'm going to ask him if we could, I mean, we could meet at his office
Mhm.
if need be, because you guys are already downtown, correct? Isn't that where your office is?
I got offices all over the place.
Yeah.
Keep running me around.
So
Don't look for me.
the only problem I'm going to see is the availability of, trying to get everybody's schedule.
Yeah, that's tricky.
So if you guys could send me an email with some dates and times that we can kind of, you know what I'm saying? That way I
Yeah,
can-
I don't know that I would be there. What I'm looking at is a meeting between the, Mr. Gode's representative, yourself,
Mhm.
a representative or representatives from county building regulations.
Mhm.
And if there's a board member who would be willing to.
Why are you looking at me?
You got close there. You were so close.
Hey, I need you.
Yeah. No, I really don't.
Okay.
The only
All right.
ones that are necessary to be there is you, as far as I'm concerned, the county, as a county administrator. And if you want to have some assistance from someone else in the county,
Mhm.
but building regulations and Mr. Gove, to
Okay.
be able to come back to us. There's no reason for any of us to be there. Do you think you can get answers to some of these questions that we're still after?
Yes.
All right. Because amongst the things that we have asked for that would have affected our decision prior, had we had the opportunity, would have been building plans, would have been in fact a survey
Mhm.
that we could actually use and read, would be answers to the question of Phil, would be questions about any issues with regards to the county in terms of.
Right.
Any of the issues around the floodplain and any issues we've also asked the county many a time. We've also asked the questions around the water and the sewage, where's all of those things, to be really clear and to be addressed ahead of time as to what being proposed have any impact in a negative way,
Mhm.
because we're looking beyond just the immediate All right,
Okay.
you got it?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to entertain a motion that this appeal, oh Lord, what's the number? For BZA case number 2021004 be tabled for a period of not longer than 90 days. With the understanding that the zoning administrator will coordinate with the appellant's attorney and the county building regulations to try and address the questions of the board.
Okay.
Is there any other clarity I should add to that you think would be helpful?
Potentially setting a date for another hearing right now so that we have a firm date to come back by.
Thank you. It's an excellent suggestion. Calendars. That works for me.
So it's June.
I said 90 days and I'm just being generous. If y'all want to tighten that up, I'm okay with that.
June 2nd.
If you're keeping it on Thursday.
If it's 90 days, June 2nd.
No longer than 90 days is what I'm suggesting.
You said longer or
No longer.
longer?
No longer than 90.
June 2nd is 90 days, so.
Are you comfortable with that?
I got a question. This is for you. Yeah. You were citing things that, you couldn't foresee and so forth. And we understand that. If it was to be something that was going to take considerably longer again, would you communicate to Karen what you ran into and why, so that it's transparent and we understand?
Yes, both in terms of if it's a delay, I'll communicate with her, and on the flip side, if it's faster and we have things sooner, then it could potentially be resolved sooner too. So both ways, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other factors before I lay something out?
They don't.
So I'm going to entertain a motion. I'd like to see a new application. Because the owners have changed, the original application. So I'm going to be honest with you, tabling this application in a way doesn't make sense right now. Because the owner has changed. I'd like to see a new application with the owner. The question is in order to do that, do we deny this application and encourage a new application with an understanding that we would commit to something in the second?
Will there be a fee involved?
Oh, I'm willing to waive a fee.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
No. I think that would be cleaner to go ahead and deny this and start over.
If I may, your other issue with
Please.
that is you still have a notice of violation in place. If you deny the variance application, notice of violation would then become, the violation would then.
Oh, the notice of violation from us.
Correct. You could potentially make a new application a condition of the 90-day wait period. The decision obviously is the board's. I just want to make you aware that if you deny variance today, you also need to then rule on this violation.
I think he's right.
Do you think it's important though to have this since the property has changed to owners or?
I'm going to be your lawyer and say it's your decision to make.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, because there is a change of ownership. I do think it's cleaner to have a new application from from the owner, from the current owner of the property. Let me ask this question. Denying this application and then encouraging a new application with an expectation that we would have until June the 2nd, at which time we would hear that application for that appeal. That would in fact then vacate that, if I'm understanding correctly, that would vacate that violation.
Building is still in violation of the code,
Right.
according to the zoning inspector.
It is. That, in terms of from them, I'm saying, do we have something? We have something, right, ours. Well, it's still in violation. So would have to issue a new one.
My position, I think, would be the violation the previous violation as issued by the inspector of the Perry Township is still in place until a decision by the BZA is made regarding that violation. If you ask for a new application, if you deny the variance, the violation is still in place.
Right.
And needs to be ruled upon.
Thank you.
So that would be carried over.
It would be, but
You can make the decision to carry it over if you would like.
yeah, and I want to look at before I go any further, I want to look at the actual violation. Do you have it?
I'm looking for it. Yes, I know I have it in here. All of this paperwork somewhere.
Sorry, I've got so much paperwork.
Mhm.
No, that's the county. I want the township.
Mine's not in color.
Yeah, she can't afford color.
I'm not in color.
She ain't got that kind of money.
Nope. All right, hang on. It's in here somewhere.
Is it? Yeah,
No,
no, it's this one. 519.
yeah, that's it.
This is what I want. Hang on, just give me a second, please. The states, just for our keeping caught up, the states that you are notified the violation existed in Perry Township, Article 3, Section 302, Item 8D. Zoning certificates, until a zoning certificate has been obtained from the zoning inspector. Construction, building, moving, remodeling, or reconstruction of any building shall not commence. Improvement of land preliminary to any such shall not commence. Use of land, building, or structures for temporary, shall not be commenced. A certificate pertaining to temporary permanent use building shall not be issued. Okay,
And if I may, again.
this is, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, please.
I understand the desire for a clean new application, but I think what we're butting up against now is that sort of restarts the entire case. And this case began when the building was constructed without a permit and
Right.
thus was found in violation of the zoning code. I think it's important to keep everything in basically, let's say, one file, one case. Would it be easier maybe to call something like a substitute application or something like that? But I think what my understanding, if I'm wrong, the board should correct me. The desire of the board seems to be to continue this case and to continue to address all the issues currently before you.
It is.
And it may be easier to keep that as one big case with some new provisions, some new application, information, et cetera, just to keep things cleaner. That's my thought. The board obviously made the decision they need to make.
But can it be listed as an updated
Absolutely.
application?
Amended, substitute.
Amended,
I like it.
whatever?
Yeah, because there's something that started the case, we were truly working with
A different owner.
a different owner. And that's what I think something that I brought up in August was, even though Mr. Goode was here and Mr. Goode is the one that built the barn and all that, this property was owned, even though it was under land contract, it was still truly owned by the Fosnaugh Edwards
Edward.
person. So, but if it's just amend the application to reflect the new owner, I think it would be probably
Right.
good to have
Right, I'm good with that.
something in that chain
Yep.
to show.
Okay. You got me, you got me.
And I'm like, you as far as the application of the P for that, it's just a matter of documenting it. that
Yeah,
it's
that's
been
all I wanted, some
amended.
clear information, because the less mess we could have, the better. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to table this appeal. And number 2021-004. For a period of 90 days with the expectation of a hearing date no later than June the 2nd. For the continuation of this. And that this be conditioned on an amended application with all current information that needs to be submitted in terms of accuracy of ownership, et cetera, is handled within the next 2 weeks. No later than 2 weeks. And that the questions that the board has raised regarding the fill, the plan, the survey, the floodplain, et cetera, are able to be addressed, and an update is able to be given to us by our county, our zoning administrator. Would somebody like to make that motion? I'll entertain it.
I'll make it, that's fine.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
I'll call the roll. Simon,
Yes.
Mr. Steck,
Yes.
Mr. Warble,
Yes.
and the chair abstains. Motion's carried. I hope that provides enough clarity on this
Yeah.
confusion and confusing ball of wax. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it very much. This is not something we usually hit. Usually we get into these before, but this is an after the fact. All right. We have 2 other pieces of business. You're all welcome to stay for it. It won't take long. But you're also, if somebody needs to leave, please feel free to. We have the minutes from the meeting on November the 4th. Have those minutes been read? Chance to look. November the 4th?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Got a chance to look. Are there any corrections to the minutes as they have been submitted?
Get it updated.
Nothing you saw?
Hold on, I'll get it. The same permit.
Karen, I think that so you might have broke a record. Nobody has any corrections to the minutes, okay? I don't know what you did. You nailed it, okay?
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as they've been submitted for the meeting on November the 4th for BZA. Is there a motion to that effect? Moved by Mr. Steck. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Warble. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We also have on our agenda, because this is a new year, opportunity to nominate a chairperson and a vice chair for the BZA for this coming year. So I'm going to do something a little out of character, since I usually will only entertain a motion, and I would like to move to nominate Mr. Brown as chair for the coming year. And Mr. Brown, of course, is sick this evening. However, he's probably well aware I do this to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
for him.
you know what happens when you don't go to a meeting?
Yeah, I know. I'd like to make that motion. So you're gonna put one down in my name this time.
Okay.
Is there a second to that motion to Mr. Brown as chair?
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, I'll call the question for that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? The motion carries. I'd like to make another nomination. Again, I'm breaking all my rules, right, for the last, all these years.
You're allowed.
I'm gonna move that for the vice chair for this coming year, that'd be Sherry Simon. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, she said yes. All right, now do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Okay. Now you don't have to listen to me now this coming year. Yeah, see, I do you these favors.
You're not off the hook.
I'm never off the hook. Do we have anything else, any other reports for you to share with us this evening?
No, but I do have a question.
Oh, sure.
You will be at the June
June
2nd.
2nd meeting.
I want it on record.
Yeah, see, we're never just gonna let this case go because then you're like, oh, I'm gonna see this one through.
Yeah. I keep,
Keep circling
yeah,
back.
yes, conditional on the fact there is a possibility I will be out of the country in June or July, so you're probably safe. It's
Okay.
supposed to be the latter part of it, so.
Okay.
So conditional, yes. Yeah, all right. Is there anything else?
Just that I will get on this with
Please.
Montgomery County. I'll talk to Robert. I'll talk to Paul
Good.
and get this thing going.
All right.
I think he lives out this way too.
Does he?
Whatever it takes to get everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Just get in the room and talk and listen, most especially listen.
And Sherry, I do want you there.
There you go. Okay. If there's nothing else, other than to say thank you both. We don't have this condition happen to us very often, and this is an unusual one. Seriously, I've not seen it in 20 years. Maybe it's happened before, but we usually don't get something this egregious. We've had some fights in here and we've had the place full and there've been all kinds of things. We've never had anything this, much of a conundrum. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Go ahead.
Second.
There's a second. Mr. Steck, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all very much.